Have you ever met someone once called smart? Someone praised by teachers? Someone their family placed all their hopes on? Someone who once heard, "You're going to do great things." Maybe it was a friend. Maybe it was you. Maybe it was me. Those children were once told, "You're going to be somebody." And they believed it. They spent their entire childhoods trying to live up to that promise. But as the years passed, that promise didn't become wings. It became invisible chains. You're not allowed to fail. You're not allowed to be weak. You're not allowed to be uncertain. And when those chains tighten in silence, many of those once smart kids grow up struggling quietly in adulthood, stuck, lost, and lonelier than anyone could have expected. Not because they become less smart, but because intelligence was once all they had. And when it's no longer enough to give direction, drive, or connection, they suddenly don't know what else to rely on. We stand in a world full of noise, yet feel as if we're living outside our own lives. Still sharp, still capable, still able to read other people's emotions, but unable to touch our own loneliness. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." For us, that unconscious force is the identity of "I am smart," an identity that once gave us love, attention, self-worth, but also the very thing that traps us in fear of failure, fear of being seen before we're ready. And if you see yourself somewhere in these words, once a gifted child, well-behaved, full of potential, but now lost in choices with no clear beginning, tired from lack of motivation, feeling like life is slipping by while you merely watch it from the sidelines, then there's something you need to know. You are not alone. What you're experiencing is not weakness. It is not failure. It is the consequence of an identity built far too early, a strategy that once helped you survive, but now silently holds you captive. And to step out of it, first, we must understand, why did it come to this? How can a seemingly harmless compliment turn into lifelong chains? Why does intelligence, of all things, make us more vulnerable to isolation, burnout, and disconnection? In the next part, we'll begin to unravel those unconscious layers through the lens of Carl Jung's depth psychology, to understand why childhood intelligence becomes a trap in adulthood. How do we let go of the old identity without losing ourselves? And more importantly, how do we begin again, not needing to be exceptional, but simply learning how to be human? Let's begin here. As children, we often saw ourselves in the simplest ways. I love superheroes. I like fried chicken. And that was enough to know who we were. Our first identity was shaped by what we loved or how others saw us. Then one day, someone said, "You're very smart." And they said it again and again, until the words became a part of who we were, not just a child, but the smart child. At first, it felt wonderful. We were noticed, praised, expected to do great things. We learned quickly, performed well, and everything seemed effortless. But then something subtle crept in. We were praised not for trying hard, but for being naturally good. Not for the effort, but for doing well without trying. And from there, a quiet belief took root. If I'm really smart, things should be easy. That belief followed us into adulthood. So when life got hard, as it naturally does, we didn't see it as normal. We thought something was wrong with us. But I'm smart, why do I feel stuck? I'm capable. Why can't I figure this out? Instead of learning how to face challenges, we started avoiding them. We stopped raising our hands unless we were sure. Stopped trying new things if failure was possible. Stopped stepping out of our comfort zone for fear we'd no longer be the capable one. And so, our world began to shrink. We only did what felt safe. We lived up to the label of smart, even as we cracked inside. While others were trying, failing, growing, we stood still, caught between the fear of being exposed and the sorrow of not being seen. And one day, we realized we had built our whole selves around something so fragile. So we began to withdraw, not out of arrogance, but exhaustion. Not out of coldness, but fear we were no longer good enough to be loved. And deep within that loneliness, we still longed for connection. So we did what we knew best. used intellect to process emotion. We analyzed people, read the looks in their eyes, guessed what they were thinking, all inside our heads. We empathized with logic, not with the heart. We connected, but never truly opened up. We talked, but never let anyone touch us. Even conversation became something we had to do well. And if we weren't sure we'd be good at it, we retreated again. That's when loneliness reached its deepest layer. We thought we could fix ourselves with intellect, wrote things down, analyzed it all, told ourselves, I'm okay. But we are not a system of logic. We are human beings, and humans can't think their way out of loneliness. So, how do we step out of this loop? How do we break free from the smart shell that has now become a prison? The answer isn't about becoming smarter. It's not about proving that we're still as good as we once were. It's actually something much more radical and counterintuitive. You have to let go. 1. Let go of the old identity, not to abandon it, but to grow beyond it. The first and most crucial thing you must do is this. Stop defining your entire self by your intelligence. Not because being smart is bad, but because when your sense of worth rests solely on it, you'll do everything you can to protect it. Avoiding anything you're not already good at, refusing to try something new, living in fear of being exposed. What you need now is a new identity, one that's not centered on being impressive, but centered on your capacity to grow. Instead of asking, am I good at this? Start asking, am I getting better? Instead of holding on to a perfect image, give yourself permission to be imperfect. 2. Allow yourself to be awkward. Learn again how to begin. Pick up a new sport. Join a class you're not sure you'll be good at. Let yourself not know. Let yourself mess up. Let yourself laugh gently at your own attempts. This isn't regression. This is real maturity. Because growing up isn't about knowing everything. It's about not knowing and choosing to show up anyway. 3. Rebuild connection on a foundation of truth. And as you begin to live more honestly, you'll start to notice something quietly magical. People don't connect with you because you're flawless. They connect because they see themselves in you, in your awkwardness, your effort, your search for direction. You don't have to say the right things. You don't have to be good at socializing. You just need to show up, sincerely. Connection isn't born from perfection. It's born from presence. From smart to fully human. When you were little, you needed to feel special to believe you had value. But growing up helps you realize something deeper. Your worth doesn't come from being better than others. It comes from daring to be yourself, one moment at a time. You don't need to be the smartest person in the room to belong in that room. You just need to be the one who stays, even when you're still figuring things out. Maybe the real journey doesn't begin with a moment of brilliance. Maybe it begins with the moment you can finally say, I'm not okay, but I'm still here, and I'm willing to begin again. You don't need to keep carrying the weight of being the promising child. You don't need to prove that you're still worthy, because you have always been worthy, even when you're unsure, imperfect, or struggling. We once built our whole selves around a compliment, an image, and now it's time to rebuild ourselves on something more true. The truth that you are not just intelligence, you are emotion, you are longing, you are human connection. You are a soul longing to be seen, not a puzzle to be solved. Carl Jung once said, the tree that reaches to heaven must send its roots down to hell. Growth doesn't come from denying your shadows. It comes from learning to live with them and still move forward. So if today you feel lost, don't pressure yourself to have all the answers. Just begin with one small step. Allow yourself to not know. Allow yourself to try. Allow yourself to be ordinary. And above all, allow yourself to live without needing to be exceptional in order to be loved. Because in the end, maturity isn't about perfection. It's about having the courage to be real, even when you're tired, uncertain, or vulnerable, but still choosing not to abandon yourself. You're no longer that smart kid from long ago. You are someone learning how to live honestly. And that is the most courageous thing you could ever be.